again. Good to see you. Did you notice a little sign on my chair? It's our topic for today. It says, because of Jesus, we serve willingly. Now, some people think that serving is all about the stuff we can do for Jesus. Like, he needs us so badly. I don't know about you, but these last few months when we've been home and we can't do our normal stuff for Jesus, well, maybe you've learned something about serving him, just like I have. So today we're going to talk about how, well, the things we think and the way we do everything to draw attention to him, well, that's what serving Jesus is really all about. And sometimes it's hard to do willingly. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, as followers of you, we want to serve you and serve you willingly, but sometimes we get in the way. So I pray as we talk together today, you will help us understand what it really means to serve you with our whole heart and draw all the attention to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Now, boys and girls, I've heard from some of you that you like the stories when Miss Kimberly was a little girl and kind of naughty. Well, today is one of those stories. I was about, 7 or 8, and one of the things I liked best about going to church on Sunday was sitting in the very front row with my cousin Sue. Now, I'm not quite sure why my mom and dad thought it was a good idea or even agreed to it, because I wasn't always good in the front row. This particular Sunday, well, I had dropped my hymn book on the floor and it made a really loud noise. I was whispering and talking. I had gotten up one time to go to the bathroom, and even though my parents were going, I pretended like I didn't notice, and when I came back, I marched right up to the front. I'm sure I was doing other things, because all of a sudden our pastor, who happened to also be my uncle, cousin Sue's daddy, well, he stopped what he was saying. At first, I didn't really notice because I was busy doing my own thing, but as it got quieter, and I looked up and noticed he was looking right at me, I knew I had maybe crossed the line and not been as well behaved as I should have in that front row. Then suddenly he said, in front of everyone sitting there, Kimberly, please go to the back of the church. Your father is there waiting to spank you. Oh my! I was so embarrassed. I got up and slunk to the back of the church. And there was my dad, and he did not have a happy look on his face. My mother was waiting there too, and she had gathered my 2 sisters, and we all walked out into the lobby. I wondered if I was going to get spanked right there, but instead my dad took my hand and our whole family marched out to the car. Oh dear, they were going to wait till we got home, and I knew I was in big trouble. But the funny thing was, once we got in the car, I couldn't help my father and mother talking about what had happened. Now, there are some very good things about having your uncle be pastor, but there was also some harder things, and some of it was just, well, sometimes getting along as a family. And I heard my father say to my mother, I can't believe he said that in front of all the church. I mean, I understand that Kimberly was not being the kind of little girl we wanted her to be in the front row, but he should not have said it. You're right, I thought to myself. He shouldn't have said it. That was very embarrassing to our whole family. And the more I listened, the more I kind of thought, this wasn't my fault. This was Pastor Willie's fault. So when we got home and I didn't get a spanking, well, I just felt more and more like I had been right and Pastor Willie had been wrong. In the middle of the afternoon, I came down to the living room and I saw my father on the phone. I couldn't quite catch everything he was saying, but the end of the conversation ended like this. Well, thank you. I love you too. And I knew he was talking to Grandma because Grandpa always ended her conversations with I love you. Then he turned to me and said, the family has had an important conversation about what happened this morning. Daddy's face looked different. He did not look angry. He looked like something had been solved. And I wonder if he and Pastor Willie, Uncle Willie, had talked. But the next thing he said surprised me. We have decided that this evening, because we had evening church back then, that you will sit with Grandma and you will sit in the balcony. You see, our church had something very special. They had a lower level where we sat all the time, but once in a while when the church was really full, you got to sit in the balcony and look down. Well, that never happened on Sunday evening. So this sounded like it was going to be a very special evening for me. Pastor Willie must have been, well, he must have felt bad about how he treated me, I thought. So that Sunday evening, I got to sit with Grandma up in the balcony. Now, the fun thing about sitting with Grandma is she seemed to understand that children needed to have, well, information about what was going on in the service to help them understand it better. So it was always good to sit with her. And as we started, she leaned and whispered over to me, Kimberly, I'm so glad you joined me up here. I'm so glad you joined me to worship and serve Jesus. Serve, I said to her, are we going to do something special? Well, I hope that we're going to learn that serving Jesus means drawing all the attention to him. Look down there. As I looked over the balcony, I didn't notice anything unusual. But then Grandma said, notice the people who are up front leading the songs. Oh, here, let's not stand and sing. Let's just watch. All right, I looked. And I could tell that as they sang and as they led worship, well, their hearts were full of their love for Jesus. Now, look over there. Do you see that lady? Mrs. Davidson? Well, she just learned that someone in her family is very sick. And I noticed as she sang, why, she was crying. See, said Grandma, she is just saying to Jesus, I trust you. The songs were over, and now the Pastor Willie, got up to pray. And as he did, I noticed somebody in row 4. Well, they weren't standing anymore. They sat down, and they put their head on the pew in front of them. See that person right there? Well, they've had a really big problem this week. I think they're just giving that problem to Jesus. And Kimberly, do you see that? Well, that mom with all those little people sitting in the back, you'd think she could hardly listen because, well, her people are busy. But do you notice what she's doing with her hands? I looked closely. Why, I did. Her hands were like this, and then once in a while they go like this, and then they go like this. See, she's giving her week to Jesus because, well, she knows it's going to be hard. all the people in church right now, well, it's all about Jesus. And then somebody got up and started to make their way out. I didn't really know who it was. It was a grown-up, and I wondered for a minute if Grandma had planned it. But Grandma just seemed to pay no attention. But I noticed some of the people did. The person who had been sitting like this suddenly opened her eyes and kind of looked. The person who was down like this seemed to realize that maybe someone was looking at them and stood back up. Grandma didn't say anything. The prayer was over and it was time for another song. But as they were all singing and some people were praising God, well, the person came back from the bathroom. And, well, the person who had been worshiping stopped and looked at the man coming from the bathroom. A little child in one of the other rows started tugging on their daddy's jacket and said, "Daddy, I have to go too," quite loudly. And then that daddy, well, he took his child out. And I wondered if the little person would have thought of it if they hadn't seen that man come in and out. Grandma put her arm around me and she said, "Kimberly, did you notice how everyone's, well, attention kind of switched? Oh, it was all about Jesus, and then somebody did something that, well, it drew the attention to themselves. Now, I'm not blaming that man. Maybe he had a really bad tummy ache or something, but it did change things, didn't it?" Yeah, it did. And I knew what Grandma was thinking, that this morning, all those things that I had been doing, which wasn't because I had a tummy ache, or wasn't because I was sick, or wasn't because I had an emergency, but just because I was a little bored. Well, all of those things I had done had taken the attention off of Jesus. Then Grandma did something that kind of puzzled me. She changed the subject. "Kimberly," she said, "your mama told me that you were very, very disappointed because your favorite TV show isn't going to be on anymore." "I know," I said. "Yeah, Mama said that they canceled that show." "Well, why do you think they did that?" "Oh, I don't know. Mama said because maybe not enough people were watching it. It didn't have enough viewers. There wasn't enough attention." "Oh," said Grandma. She was quiet for a minute. "I'm sorry your favorite TV show was canceled. But sometimes it's a good thing. Kimberly," she said, "you see down there? See, that's the Jesus show. And we want to make sure that when we come to church, we are giving all the attention to Jesus. We want him to look good. We want everyone to be focusing on him. You see, that is the Jesus show." And then she said something I'll always remember. She said, "Kimberly, it's not the Kimberly show down there. That show has been canceled." Whoa, I thought to myself. The Kimberly show was canceled. But the Jesus show, well, that should be every week. Boys and girls, this next Sunday, we're going to be able to open up our church again and come together. And there'll be some things that, well, might be different. We might not have all of our old friends there. Yep, some people aren't ready to come back yet because maybe their health isn't really good and strong. Or maybe they just feel like it's more important as their family to worship at home for a little while longer. We won't be able to have Sunday school. And trust me, I'm really sad about that. But you see, it's not the Kimberly show. So even though I would like to have Sunday school and I'd like to see all you and I'd like to say, it's Donut Sunday, that's not the Kimberly show. No, it's the Jesus show. So when you come back on Sunday, whether it's this Sunday or another Sunday, I want you to think about, even though there might be some things different, it's about serving Jesus. One of my favorite verses for boys and girls says, let no one despise you because you're young, but set an example for believers in speech, in conduct, in love and faith, and in purity. I say, boys and girls, even though you are some of the youngest ones in church, you can set an example about serving Jesus by making the focus all about him, all about the Jesus show. Because you know what? Our personal show, let's cancel it. And let's give the glory to Jesus. So, hopefully I'll see some of you this Sunday or the next. And when we do, let's remind each other, it's the Jesus show.